In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. It's a great joy for Father Pfeiffer and I to come to these parts of the country, to Ireland, and we were in Scotland yesterday, and today in England. These parts of the world that used to be the shining light to all the world of the one holy Roman Catholic Church, and raised up to God so many saints, so many martyrs, so many monks, so many nuns, priests. Ireland, which would literally ship out, export priests. In the United States, every diocese is grateful to all the priests who have come from these parts of the world who have brought the faith. And it's the faith that used to shine so bright in this part of the country, part of the world, until heresies with Protestantism. And as you know, with the Protestant Revolution, it was an attack on the basis of the Catholic faith, the basic doctrines, especially the Roman Pontiff, the Holy Eucharist and the sacrifice of the Mass, the Holy Sacrament of Confession, and it was the champions of the faith among the Dominican order, the Cistercians, among the Jesuits, who in the very streets here in London, like Father John Roberts, you can read his book called The Autobiography of a Hunted Priest. It's a fascinating account of the priests saying Mass, hunted down like animals, like criminals, to bring Mass to souls in the time of the persecution. Many of those priests succeeded. Some of them would go into bars, and in the bars the Catholics would gather. The Protestant police would just think it's another bar drinking day, and during that time the priest would open the floors on the top and bottom, and he would teach the catechism and say Mass and go out in disguise. So this is how the priests survived. This is how the faith survived here. And how many martyrs, how much blood shed down at the London Tower, at Tyburn. How many saints went to their crown in heaven for the very Mass that's being said now, for the very doctrine of the Catholic faith, which brings us here. We would rather die than abandon our Lord Jesus Christ. We would rather die than abandon the true Catholic faith of all time. And as Cardinal P. of Poitiers, a great mentor, someday probably to be canonized, St. Pius X called him my master, Cardinal P. of Poitiers. He said, the battlefield of doctrine is where the battles will be won and what determines the future. It's on the battlefield of doctrine where the real battles are won. And it's always doctrine. Doctrine, doctrine, doctrine. Our Lord Jesus Christ taught a doctrine. Who believes and is baptized will be saved. Who does not believe and is not baptized will be condemned. There is no option. And this sacred doctrine passed down by the Blessed Trinity to the Divine Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, establishing the Roman Catholic Church, Peter, and on Peter the rock, his duty is to hand down that traditional Catholic faith, not to invent, not to compromise, not to make novelties. And it's on the battlefield of doctrine that determines what we're supposed to do now. When we see our dear Society St. Pius X, that has always been, for 42 years, the champion. Thank God, holding high the light of the true doctrine, holding high the As Archbishop Lefebvre handed down, as he himself said, I handed down what I received, the true faith, the true doctrine, the true Mass of all time. And now, since last July, we see a very sad direction, a new direction that the Society of St. Pius X always had condemned, always knew. We never compromise on matters of the faith. You never compromise with Vatican II, which is an attack on the Catholic faith. It is a direct about face from Catholic tradition. And so when we see the Society of St. Pius X at the very leadership, giving way, crumbling to the liberalism, crumbling to Vatican II. And as I'm sure most of you have read the doctrinal preamble during the talks today, this will be covered in detail. Why the doctrinal preamble is so serious. And the three outstanding things are, it accepts Vatican II. Dressed in so many words, it accepts the poison. Once you bite into that poison, it gets into the bloodstream. You're gone. You cannot compromise with liberalism. It just poisons and makes the Catholics abandon and lose their faith. Acceptance of Vatican II and the so-called light of tradition. Acceptance of the new sacraments and the new Mass as legitimate, which Archbishop Lefebvre never, ever dared to say. He always called it illegitimate. And in French, masse bâtarde. The illegitimate Mass, illegitimate priests, illegitimate sacraments. Why illegitimate? Because they poison the fountain of the grace. They poison it with the errors of Protestantism and modernism. And some of those sacraments, as you know well, are doubtful. That's why the traditional bishops confirm conditionally, just in case they're not valid. And in many cases, they're not valid because they change the words, they change even the oil. And then the acceptance of a new code of canon law. And once you cave into these, as we just have to look at recent history, look at all the traditional groups who wanted to keep the faith, wanted to stay faithful, but once they bit into the poison of Vatican II, once they bit into the poison of modernism, once they bit into the poison of the new Mass and the new sacraments, they've all caved in, every one of them. And this is why it's so grave, because it's a question of the faith, the doctrine. And on this Catholic faith hinges our eternal salvation, or our eternal damnation. There's no option. And St. John, as Bishop Tisti de Mallory quoted last year in the sermon at ordinations in Winona, in the U.S., he quoted St. John. St. John warns us, beware of those who dissolve Jesus Christ because they bring the Antichrist. They prepare for the Antichrist. Who dissolves Jesus Christ in his kingship, his divinity, his priesthood, his royalty, attacks and dissolves Jesus Christ and prepares for the Antichrist. And this has been the mission of the new church, of the new conciliar church, to prepare the apostasy, which is now happening all over the world, the apostasy of all the Catholic nations, Catholics losing their faith. Why? Because of the acceptance of the modernist ideas that attack our Lord Jesus Christ, dissolve him. And this we must oppose. Archbishop Lefebvre opposed. Bishop de Castro Mayor with them opposed. And the Society of St. Pius X always opposed for 42 years until last July. And it has officially caved in. And this is not rumors, this is not internet gossip. These are the official documents signed and sent to Rome. And this is why the alarms are ringing, the red lights are flashing, the ship is sinking, so to speak. And as priests and as faithful, we don't have the right to compromise the Catholic faith. We don't have the right to dissolve Jesus Christ the King. We don't have the right to turn our back on Him. But this is the hour now to gather close to His cross under the mantle of His Blessed Mother. This is the hour of the darkness and the triumph of darkness. And it's this hour we know we are helpless children. We are orphans. Where's our Pope? Where's our Holy Father, whose duty is to teach the Catholic faith rather than dissolve it? Whose duty is to defend who He represents, Jesus Christ, the eternal God, the incarnate God, and rather addresses all the world religions, which He did early in His pontificate this year, that there must be a mutual respect and friendship between the false religions. It's impossible. And the true mutual respect, the true friendship, is to tell them the truth, to lead them to the truth. There's no two truths. There's not 500 truths, there's only one. And any mathematician, any physicist, any engineer knows in the matter of their field, there's only one truth. There's not two options to 2 plus 2. There's not two options. And there's only one option. Jesus Christ, the eternal God who became flesh, founded His Roman Catholic Church. And Archbishop Lefebvre said this once in a sermon. He said, we want the Pope to be Pope. But what do we do when He's not Pope? We're caught between recognizing Him as Pope, but also we have to resist Him. Because now, since Vatican II, they are oppressing the Church and the faithful with these new doctrines, which have not only been opposed to the Catholic teaching, they've been condemned. They've been absolutely condemned by all the previous popes. So that's why, as Archbishop Lefebvre said, we can battle on peacefully, courageously, fearlessly. Why? Because we just turn to all the tradition of the Church, all the popes before Vatican II, who condemned the errors of Vatican II. And now that these errors are penetrated into the society of St. Pius X, which I love, which kills me to see dying from this poison. And it puts us all in this strange emergency situation. Now, what are we doing here in a hall when we should have the churches? As St. Athanasius says, they have the churches, we have the faith. What do? You keep the faith. You keep the faith, even if you're driven to the persecutions of yesteryear here in England and in Ireland. We keep the faith. It's on the battlefield of doctrine that determines the future. And even if we're reduced to a handful, says St. Athanasius, and you're still faithful to Catholic tradition, you still remain the true Church of Jesus Christ. Because the true Church of Jesus Christ does not dissolve Jesus Christ. And that's why the poison of modernism, the poison of Vatican II, to say that Vatican II enlightens Catholic tradition and deepens the understanding of Catholic tradition, it's a contradiction. And how is this possible that this is being said by the Superior General of our Catholic traditional bastion, the last bastion left? So when the leaders caved in, when Henry VIII caved in, the few Catholic priests and bishops that resisted him and the faithful, they had to resist. They had no other choice. And if that meant martyrdom and bloodshed, blessed be God. And like so many martyrs before, they were ready to die for the faith. And if Vatican II and all the Pope and bishops cave in to the modern ideas that the Catholic Church has always condemned, that dissolves Jesus Christ, then God raised up 2 bishops, and many faithful and many priests who went independent throughout the world. And now something we never dreamt, I never expected. But apparently it's been prepared for a number of years. this, call it what it is, betrayal, treachery, right from the top. And as many excuses they try to make, to say, well, things are back to normal, there's no agreement, there's no compromise at all. Well, the compromise is right in the preamble, the general chapter statement, 6 conditions. Until those things are openly, publicly rejected, repudiated, and trashed, you can't believe their words. Because the Catholic faith is clear. It's always true. It's always, it's always a light. It's not something you put under a bushel, as Christ said. So what do? We hold on. We carry on. And we put our trust in the only one that can really help us now and always is the Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary. It's given to her to crush the head of Satan. It's given to her to show us how to deal with any compromise of the Catholic faith. What is her way of dealing with the serpent? Is it like Eve? Try to talk and discuss and make distinctions and work things out, negotiate the Catholic faith? No. What did that lead to? What did that lead to for our first mother, Eve? But the Virgin Mary, what does she do? She crushes the head of Satan. She steps on it. There's no discussion. There's no dialogue. There's no negotiation with the Catholic faith. And she, the instrument of God, the most pure, beautiful girl, virgin, mother. It's like stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson and a little girl beating him and crushing him, knocking him out. And yet God has given this little girl, the Virgin Mary, to crush, to step, to destroy Satan. And that's what we must follow. You don't dialogue the Catholic faith. You don't negotiate it. You don't dress it in so many modernist terminology and ambiguous words. We reject that. We have to. And we resist. And we resist the errors, and we hold faithful, because we want to stay faithful to our Lord Jesus Christ, to the faith of all time, to the true Mass, to the true sacraments. So I beg you, in this day, listen to the conferences. They will be very inspiring. They will help you to make good decisions. And pray to the Mother of God for this Pope to consecrate Russia. The Vatican II popes condemning always Catholic tradition, excommunicating Catholic tradition, suspending Catholic tradition, calling the traditional Catholics disobedient, when they themselves disobey the very authority of the Mother of God herself, and have not consecrated Russia as she asked. And she still ignores. And the world is collapsing before our very eyes. In the United States, we just see it's collapsing to pieces. It's just collapsing quickly. The morals, everything. So, what do? We resist. We hold on. And we have no other choice. Pray for this Pope. Pray for Bishop Fillet. Either for a miracle that he turns around and all the bishops. We can't have tradition without bishops. So you need to pray that Bishop Williamson stay strong. Pray for him, write to him, encourage him to lead as he might not want to, but he has no choice either. So pray for the bishops, Bishop Tissier, because they know, they don't agree with all this. And they need the strength to do as former bishops have done. And also pray for all the societies and Pius X priests. Each priest is cut in his whole soul. He's cut deeply in this crisis. Because we all have to make that choice. Now, do I go and be obedient, be prudent, be unified, and therefore go along with this apostasy? Call it what it is. It's apostasy. Eventually it leads to apostasy. Liberalism leads to apostasy. Or do I have the choice? Do I have to decide to not go with that and stand on the position of our founder, Archbishop Lefebvre, who never would compromise on Vatican II and the new Mass and the new Code of Canon Law? Never. Never. So that's where a number of us priests, thanks to the mercy of God and the Virgin Mother, not through any merits of our own, but we have chosen to stay there. And we trust in the good God that He will help us in this hour, guide us. And the mother, she's a mother. Mothers, when their children are in the darkest time, in the most difficult decisions, she's closest to them. So it's to her we confide. It's to her we run. It's to her we put all our hope and trust to help us in this hour. But until then, we have to do what the priests are supposed to do. If the bishops don't do it, we got to do it, which is to keep the Mass, keep the faith, keep the sacraments until God gives us some other solution. What else can we do? And we shouldn't really be too surprised, because we know from the words of Christ, the prophecies of the Virgin Mary in La Salette, in Quito, in Ecuador, and in various other places, she warned us of these times. The apostasy. When the faith will be kept in just a few farmhouses, a few little groups of people here and there, families, and the priests will have to go back to carrying our Mass kits on our back and bringing the faith, keeping the faith alive. But there's a great thing that draws our hearts, never to despair, never to get despondent, never to give up, as the devil loves to play on these vices of despair. We have the promise of Our Lady's own words, though. In the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. It's going to triumph. And happy you if you stay faithful to her rosary, her scapular, to the faith that her divine Son gave us. So now let us go, kneel down before the very altar, where very soon this bread and this wine will be changed into the living body, blood, soul, and divinity of the living God. His sacrifice, this Mass, which brought many, in England for sure, many families to be imprisoned. St. Anne Line, all those Carthusians, all those Jesuits who were imprisoned and hanged, drawn, and quartered. Why? Because of this very Mass, the same Mass. It's powerful. And why does Satan have such a hatred for this true Mass and the true doctrine on which the Mass is built? Because it's Jesus Christ undissolved, the sacrifice reactualized. And that's why we kneel and adore the true God present here, His sacrifice. And that sacrifice is what opens heaven to us. It's that sacrifice of the Sacred Heart of Jesus that floods into your soul all the graces you need to save your soul, to keep the faith, and persevere to the end. Which grace I ask for all of you, and all of us priests, through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. O Mary, conceived without sin. O Mary, conceived without sin. O Mary, conceived without sin. In the Father, Son, and the